Hey, how's everyone doing tonight? I wanted to do a nice, interesting live stream tonight. Welcome to anyone that's watching. So, hey, Jamie, we're going to be doing book review tonight. So, all right. So let's give a quite introduction. I bought this book a few months ago, and I read this book while I had the flu. So yeah, I just noticed that, Jamie. So we're gonna change it out next time. Yeah, I heard that. I said, what the hell? I'm saying, what the hell are they doing? So Sonia Grace wrote two novels, and they're pretty good. All right. Did you ever want answers to some of these most mysterious sites? So Sonia Grace is a medium, clairvoyant, and healer. She claims to be able to travel back in time while she astral travels. She doesn't call it astral traveling because she says that there's a different process to it. She goes with her spirit guides to wherever she goes, and she has a quite unique view on things. So I wanted to review her book. So let me just. All right, let's throw the camera on. I'm just awful today. Come on. All right. All right. So this is the book that we'll be reviewing tonight. I give this a 5 stars review. She has a first edition where she goes to Stonehenge and other places such as Chichen Itza. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that she says or claims in this book and give everyone a heads up. All right. So in this is the second edition, and she talks about the Great Sphinx of Giza, Easter Island. There's a Hoden megalith in Japan called Depi Tepi, the Great Pyramid, the Ziggurat of Ur, and the Eye of the Desert, which is actually in Africa. It looks like a swirling structure in the desert. I think it's Mauritania. So I never told this story before, so I'm going to tell it now. When I was a kid, I used to have recurring dreams of recurring dreams of going to Egypt. I probably astral traveled while I was sleeping, and I went down at the bottom of the Sphinx of Giza, and it was quite stunning. Now, there are there were scans done to the pyramid and Sphinx complex. There are lidar scans; they're more detailed. But I was taken down a staircase. It was gold in color. I don't think it would be gold. It's like a more like a brass steps going down a normal staircase, and then then there was a room, a reception room. All right, and there were lots of volumes of books. So you look through the catalog and you take a look at what their holdings are, and then you're scurried down a hallway with niches on the side, and those were used as reading rooms. Now, if you ever read Edgar Casey, some of his readings, he mentions the Hall of Records. So this was, hey Barbara, welcome. So the Hall of Records is actually I'm trying to describe it into words that my audience would understand. So you go into the room, all right, there's a huge room, and there's hieroglyphs on the walls. It's a huge room. And yeah, Edgar Casey's readings, Barbara, are quite amazing. But as a child, I was taken down there. I think I astral traveled to the pyramids because I watched Unsolved Mysteries and I had questions. So I started having dreams about what's underneath the Sphinx. And some high priest came into the niche or whatever and handed me a few books. Okay, these books go back slightly before the Ice Age ended. And the books that they got in that room are not normal books. I describe it more as a printing press. There are these pages are made of a material that I can't identify. Made of something in the middle of glass and with copper or something mixed in. And then you could bang these things against the wall and they will not break. And pressed into these slabs, they would stick stamps in with individual hieroglyphics. So you would they're smaller in size, and what they would do is put ink on the raised portion, and they would mass produce books when they needed it. Because we all know that books and paper degrade over time, and that's scientifically proven. This was proven in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, where old Christian writings were found, and some of them they were in pretty bad shape. They were they were rotting. The pages were rotting. So what they had to do when they found that in the 40s was find a way to stop the degradation and actually translate these books into different languages. It was a different version of some of the writings we read in the Bible. And I don't take the Old Testament or the New Testament literally, because you got to read between the lines, because languages change over time. And okay, is this a saying? An old saying for the first century or 10,000 years ago? So I was presented with books, and then I wake up. There was murals on the wall made of plaster, and it was very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Because in Spanish class, Barbara, I learned something. I didn't actually learn to speak Spanish. Actually, I didn't actually learn too good Spanish because I didn't really care. But the one thing I remember from Spanish class is some Spanish doesn't have certain words for certain things. Like, let me give you an example. There is no word for like in the Spanish language. They use the closest word to it, which is to be pleasing. I find this pleasing. Hey, Gloria. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Not every language is structured the same. And cuneiform is one of the languages that's, you know, in some of these books that we find in the, oh, yeah, Barbara. If you want to come up when I'm done, I'm always willing to debate someone on this, you know? So I had that experience. I went to another place, a few other places. I went to the Parthenon as a child. And what's that place called in Lebanon? I'm thinking it's not coming to me. Yeah. So let me actually give the age of the pyramids at Giza. So in this book, all right, they're over 12,000 years old. Egypt was founded right before Atlantis sunk. Atlantis sunk, and before that, there was warning that something was going on. They were abusing their technology, their advanced technology and knowledge. And Sonia Grace mentions on one of her podcasts that Atlantis had some orbs which had a lot of nuclear energy to them. And that's what and then there's something to do with the crystals inside the pyramids of Atlantis. They were used as a defense weapon. Okay, let me just switch that off. Yeah, absolutely, Barbara. They don't know how old the pyramids are. They don't know how old the Sphinx is. However, if you go through the evidence that they have, the scientific evidence, Africa, northern Africa, used to be green savanna back before the ice age ended. So they didn't settle in a desert, all right, or along the Nile River per se. So at that time, there was actual rain, storms, and that may explain the Sphinx and why there's water erosion that could not be possible back in the fourth dynasty, if you want to call it the fourth dynasty. I believe there were plenty of dynasties before the first. So there was one pharaoh, starts with an N. He was the one who united Upper and Lower Egypt. Nemnir. All right. So Nemnir was the person who united Upper and Lower Egypt, according to history. And many of the written records for ancient Egypt are non-existent. The records for ancient Egypt are very scant, as in paper form. And it was mentioned by the Jewish historian Josephus that he went to the Library of Alexandria and actually looked up who the pharaoh during the Exodus actually was. So Josephus names Amenhotep as the pharaoh. It wasn't Ramses. And you get clues from foreign sources. All right? You get clues from foreign sources, or so now Egyptologists are, this has been happening for hundreds of years. They go into a tomb of a pharaoh, and and it writes the good deeds and the reign of the pharaoh. This is where we get the Egyptian history from. There are pieces missing, of course. So I believe Edgar Casey's Hall of Records is real. I was there, all right? And these LiDAR scans are showing that there's chambers underneath the pyramids. And there are several levels of them, actually. And then it goes meters and meters deep. There's like a big pit underneath. And it looks like from the scans, not actually true, according to this book, Barbara. Not according to this book. All right, I'm going to tell you what the pyramids were actually used for. So, the pyramids at Giza have no hieroglyphs on the walls. It seems to me like they were just built. And here's the funny thing, all right? What I find about there was a historian on YouTube, and I watched him last night, and he said that the Great Pyramids of Giza, the three of them, were the earliest pyramids to be built. He's still going by the fourth dynasty, which I don't believe for a minute. All right. And then the construction methods went downhill from there. So I believe that the Red Pyramid was from the same time. There's several so-called sites that Egyptologists think were unfinished. I believe they were finished. They were destroyed, and then they take the rubble away. Now, what people may not know about the pyramids is there was white limestone placed on top of the current stones, and most of it's gone. Now, Egypt is, if you want to get geologically speaking, near a fault line. All right, there's earthquakes back in pre-Sahara Africa. There was rain. It probably, some of the ones, probably the white limestone on the top and towards the bottom, were eroded over time. And then you just wait for an earthquake, and then they all fall off. And what they do is they haul them away for other projects. I don't think it's... Yeah, Gloria. Oh, not yet. I haven't read that, but I might get that book. And when I read this book, all right, I decided to check if anything could be confirmed scientifically, or if there are any other accounts. All right. So the story of Gilgamesh is actually the Noah flood story and Adam and Eve story. A lot of these stories in the Old Testament are being traced back to Mesopotamia in some form or another. But those were the earliest. Just so people know. So, what are... Yeah, all we could do, Barbara, at this point is guess. What were the pyramids used for? What were they? Even Zoe Hawass in Egypt, he was former head of the Antiquities Department. He can't even tell you how they were built. They were built to a precision. All right? They were perfectly astronomically aligned structures. Now, in this book, Spirit Traveler, that I read, she gives a fascinating story of how they were built a few centuries before the Ice Age ended. Another source says that few sources in the paranormal community say Well, the Ice Age ended almost overnight, a few days. And that's where the Noah's flood comes in. All right. So in this book, she goes back in time to when they built the pyramids and somewhere in between. And there is actually evidence for this in Sudan. Now, some of the sites in Sudan are off limits. All right. They don't even know if they're safe because of the electromagnetic energy coming from them. And you walk into one of the Sudanese temples, and they have a star map on the wall, a star map of our solar system, and it looks slightly different than ours today. And what the pyramids were actually, what the belief was in later times, was that the pyramids of Giza and a few others that existed were the gateways to their gods. Oh, I can't stand him, Barbara. But you can't really blame him because he has the Egyptian government on top of him and he can't say what he really feels. And I agree with you. He is corrupt. He's clueless. He even admitted in an interview that he's clueless. Because a lot of the things that don't make sense, there are oral traditions, there are books from people that went to Egypt, from Greece, Greek historians. And we're going to get back to the pyramid real quick. They believed it was a gateway to their gods. They could communicate with their gods. All right. That was the unbelief back then. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to get to the doggone in a little bit. But so Sonia Grace actually spirit traveled to the Great Pyramid and the I think it's the second one on the list, and the Sphinx. And she was greeted by the god Sekhmet. Now, do I believe in many, many gods? No. It's misinterpreted. It's misinterpreted. All right. You think they believed in many, many gods, but they were actually traditionalists. They honored the ones that founded their civilization. So she goes back in time and meets with Sekhmet, who is a demigod. She's considered from a planet. Some of all these gods that are mentioned in old religious texts, what they are is actually advanced people from other planets. And you go into the Pyramid of Giza, it's actually a stargate. All right, believe it or not. So she claims it's a stargate, like in the similar to what you would find on modern TV, Stargate, SVU, SV3 or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. They were misinterpreted as gods. All right. Let's just put it that way. And we look at these writings today and they say, wait a minute. Were these people unhinged due to modern religious beliefs? You know, it's like sometimes you got to look between the lines because some of the things that are in the Odyssey book from the Greeks, they're like old sayings. I don't believe Atlas held the world on his shoulders. I think that's allegorical or metaphorical. And the people back then knew what it meant, but now we have to sit there and try to interpret what the Homer in the Odyssey says. So Sonia Grace claims, yeah, sometimes they saw things back then that their mind couldn't comprehend. They attributed it to magic, or they said, wait a minute, they're just describing what they saw in words that they knew. So you can't just ignore all these ancient writings and just say, oh, they're boohoo, they're not history. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Barbara. That's a good analogy for it. So Sonia went into the Great Pyramid. All right. And she was let in by her spirit guides. And the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. All right. In the king's chamber, actually, there is a sarcophagus that's open. It's over 7 feet tall, wide, maybe 8 feet, closer to 8 feet. And what she claims is that she got into the sarcophagus with a lid, and they use sound. They use sound to communicate messages. Use the Stargate, and there is, according to her, another system underground, and these it opened up portals. All right, the Great Pyramid opened up portals. You can either go to another planet, you can go to someplace on Earth, go to another place on the planet. It's quite it sounds too good to be true. All right. It sounds too good to be true, but we don't have any written history, probably because, all right, the Library of Alexandria was looted, burned several times, and there was lots and lots of writings lost on how they made their statues, to what the pyramids were used, how they built them. So the claim in the paranormal community is actually this. Yeah, it sounds like an amazing time, Gloria. It does. So she hopped in and it was humming, and she saw the lights inside the sarcophagus go, and then she ended up on another planet. The portals actually go to Orion, and that's where she claims Asgard is in the book. If anyone wants to read the old tales of the Norwegian, the Scandinavian gods, all right, it's pretty far out there. All right, I got to admit, but why? We don't know anything. Most of the records were in Alexandria, or copies of them were deposited there, and we don't have less than 5% of the materials actually survived. All right. It's first it was looting, then there was fires. Julius Caesar apparently burned down that library about 49 BC. Then we had a few invasions along the way. So a lot of the copies, some of the originals, as I said before, were in the Hall of Records underneath the Sphinx, and it's towards the pyramid. It's like a T-shaped. So you go down the hallway, and it looks like granite on the walls. Now they discovered that granite had electrical properties. All right. Yeah, and actually, she claims that the some of the planets in Orion are inaccessible. They have to come to you because they don't like because Earth is a problem planet. Yeah, yeah, 100%. So the pyramids were used, according to her, as portals, stargates, ways to get around the Earth and off planet. And they were also used as communication devices. Yeah, it's certain crystals inside. It's like a complicated substance. It's one of the hardest stones besides diamond. And I'm pretty sure of this. There are magnetic properties like magnets. So the claim how they were built was sound. You could move some of the blocks inside the pyramid, and we can't figure that out. But there is science backing up that operas could sometimes break glass. So if they could break glass, they could probably move stone if they're at the right pitch. All right. So, Barbara, you asked about, let me see here. Just give me a second. Give me just a second. All right. So, so the so-called gods of Scandinavia, they didn't go through the pyramids. All right, they didn't go through the portals in the pyramids, but they actually went through was another portal on the planet where Stonehenge is. Now, I was taken probably to Stonehenge back in the when I was a kid, and it looked totally different. Right, there was wood inside it. It was actually a building, and these portals actually came from Asgard, as you call it. So the Pleiadians, the so-called Pleiadians, were helping out the people of the UK, northern France, and the Asgardians actually decided to go to Scandinavia. So a lot of these groups, these so-called demigods, they're different. All right, they came from different places. So she talks about in the second book. All right, I'm going to read it again. Great Sphinx of Giza, Easter Island, the Great Pyramid. All right, in her other book, she had Stonehenge. And in her first book, she describes the one pyramid as she describes it as an echo chamber. All right. So sound used to go through at a specific frequency and you would become weightless. All right. I think it prepared you to go through the portal. And so Stonehenge was actually a portal. All right. I don't think it's as good as the pyramids or the ones in South America. They had similar purposes. All right. Now I had some dreams where they some of them are wells for desalination or cleaning up the drinking water in the Nile. Those are what some of the pyramids are used for in Egypt. And then there are the more sophisticated ones. Okay. The more sophisticated all right. So she writes about in this book, she writes about the ziggurat of Ur. All right. Now that was placed over an opening in the earth. All right. And that's where the actual biblical Garden of Eden story took place underground in caves. And you can see caves like that in Turkey. So if you go through, if you put in YouTube underground tunnels or something, it could easily fit 100,000 people living underground. And those bunkers were used to, they ran in there when there was an attack by an invading army. There was a natural disaster. So they went underground after the flood, after the Great Flood. And there are many flood myths across the world today, and they're based on the story of Noah. Yeah, I can't pronounce the name, Barbara. So after the Ice Age ended and Atlantis sunk, it kind of was a reset. All right. First, they survived. A lot of these civilizations survived the flood part, where the ocean levels rose. But then it was also a bad time. Those earthquakes, the more than there are today. Even now, as the earthquake activity is ramping up. All right. Now, Sonia Grace in her book claims that, wait a minute, it wasn't just the Great Flood that set us back. Yeah, that's yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Barbara. Aaron Guku or something like that. And quite volatile. The comets came. All right, the comets came. Some of what they call unfinished pyramids were actually destroyed by asteroids. Asteroids would cause huge tsunamis. I don't know whether to call them asteroids or comets. All right. I wouldn't know what to classify them as, because sometimes I have these weird dreams. Everyone astral travels at night at least a few times a week, and yeah, there were the asteroids, and some of the drawings actually show shooting stars. Now, could they be misinterpreted as asteroids? All right. So first came the flood due to a polar tilt. That was the worst in human history because some of their technology, advanced technology, caused it. Caused a worse. So Atlantis was broken up into a few pieces. The main piece is Antarctica today, the continent. But there are pieces off the shore. And go to the Azores, that area off of Africa and Europe, outside the Strait of Gibraltar. All right, it's there's some land that sunk there. There was a continent in the Pacific that was destroyed. And Barbara, have you noticed that in the Pacific Ocean, there's like different, I don't know how to say this, so I'm going to skip it, all right? Sometimes dreams need to be interpreted. But there's the rumors of Mount Shasta, where there are people living underneath. I'm hearing from other sources that many of the Atlanteans actually survived and went under the ice. And they have ships that come and go as they please because no one can stop them. All right. And Antarctica is the most isolated place on Earth. It's cold. So the claim was that the polar shift or tilt or magnetic pole reversal sent Antarctica within a day or so to the South Pole. All right. To the South Pole. Now they're finding flash freezed animals. All right, that they're stuck in the ice, and they still have digested food in their stomach. All right, digested food, undigested. Some parts maybe digested, but when they froze, it must have happened quick. Because when you eat, it takes maybe 24, 36 hours to digest. So they had a meal. The animals had a meal, and yeah, absolutely they did, Barbara. So Antarctica, science is actually confirming that Antarctica had a more temperate climate at one point, or more tropical in nature, and then the continent slid probably within a day or so underneath where it is now. Yeah, flash frozen. They were flash frozen. They're finding them in northern Alaska. They're finding them in Antarctica. Some animals that are extinct. And they're finding evidence of different types of trees and moss. So part of the so when the continent of Atlantis sunk, it broke off, and then the bigger piece, which is Antarctica, decided to go down to the South Pole. All right. So when I was several years ago, I met some Long Island psychics. All right, they actually call themselves pagans, and she's actually one of them was actually a really, really nice lady, and she told me some things. She even did a past life reading for me. All right, one of my lives was in Atlantis when and my life ended the day Atlantis sunk. And I was there to evacuate people. I was there to warn people, but no one listened. And right at the end, I actually had a dream of this. I'm a female running down out of the pyramid, but something hit me and I died instantly. So then I run outside, and it looks like the Northern Lights outside, and it was awfully, awfully hot. Now there was something in our solar system, all right, that was in the sky along with it. It was dark. So I was making my the run for it to the aircraft, and I didn't make it. This pyramid or temple was huge. All right. This place was huge. I don't understand what was in the sky. Was it an asteroid, a comet? Was it? Okay, there is no Planet X, Barbara. There is no Planet X. So so scientists at NASA are looking for Planet 9, aka Planet X. And I actually found from a reliable source, all right, that there isn't a big planet, Neptune-sized planet out way past Pluto. What actually happened was our solar system was actually born with 2 stars. Now, if you look on scientific websites, all right, you look at scientific websites, and yeah, you can disagree all you want, Barbara. All right, I'm not sitting here telling people, oh, you agree with me or else. We all know someone, Barbara, that we all know someone that stamps his feet and decides, I want things my way. Or why don't you agree with me? So if you look on NASA, there's a video, there's a short in my feed today, that our solar system is very unusual. It's bottom of the barrel because most solar systems have 2 or 3 stars. No, you know what I think, Barbara? This is just a theory of mine. Some of those planets, or the dwarf planets that we're finding in the Kuiper Belt. So the star died, and everything in the outer solar system went haywire. Right? What they're not at NASA they're not considering something. All right, they're not considering a rogue star could cause it. They actually seen it in on the James Webb and Hubble telescopes. A rogue star moving through the galaxy, and it's moving. That's that. I heard that from someone, Barbara. But wouldn't that be called a black dwarf or a dark dwarf? It isn't that massive of a star. It died, and it just gives off infrared light or just a slight gravitational pull. You know, I think there are more dwarf planets out there. I think there are remnants from that star, and they took orbit around the sun. All right. So if you want to believe in Planet X, there are probably many of them that are Pluto size, maybe a little bigger than Pluto, and yeah. So Billy Meyer actually came up with that second star hypothesis. So this book is actually gives answers, all right, to some of these sites. I made a comment on her YouTube page and asked if you considered this and that, and she said it's in her next book. So I'm looking forward to reading it, you know? So the Ziggurat of Ur was built as a temple on top of the entrance of the Garden of Eden, according to her, along with does everyone remember that pyramid in the Yucatan Peninsula, Chichen Itza or whatever it's called? That was hiding another cave system, and they believed in a great serpent. It was actually an intelligent energy down there, and the Maya ended. All right, many of them fled north, but the ones that were left down in the south, because there was a big drought, they started sacrificing humans. All right, and then they said, let's get down to the water pits down below Chichen Itza. But they said that water's sacred. The high priests. That water's sacred. That it's something that. So they started sacrificing humans, and their population went down until the entire civilization fell from the people that stayed. So that's the story of Chichen Itza. It's there's actually 2 pyramids on top of each other, and a lot of the temples in South and Central America are actually they can't even tell you how they were built. All right, you can't even put a piece of paper in between. It's so she writes about Easter Island. All right, and she actually used the portal. Sonia used the portal, and she ended up on Easter Island too. So there's a temple that's probably buried over at Easter Island, and people used to travel the globe with this. Now, some of these portals I'm hearing are either interdimensional or both. So you could use it to travel. You could use it to communicate. And a lot of this knowledge was lost when the Romans came in. Now, I'm hearing from another source, actually, that the Ptolemies shut down the pyramids before the Romans came in. You have a point there. Some of the materials were destroyed or confiscated by the Spanish priests. And some of the information probably that did survive is in an archive somewhere underground. All right. I don't think they destroyed everything. Well, they did destroy some shit. All right. You got to admit that. But all we have left is that calendar, the Mayan calendar, and a few other things. Yeah. It's the only one that's not missing. It's the only one that's not missing. And one book I read, I think it's Secrets and Mysteries of the World, says that the Ark of the Covenant is underneath the pyramid at Giza. So no one would think to look there, would they? I think so. Barbara. The copper archives that the priest found. Yeah. So what I'm hearing on paranormal threads is the Romans actually looted the Library of Alexandria, took some of their books to Rome, and it actually became the Vatican archives later on, a few hundred years later. Now, the Vatican archives is a library just like Alexandria. It's just the predecessor. It started when popes needed a place to put their documents and writings. So a lot of things have been saved. I don't think the Vatican even knows what they got. They got so much material, so many rooms. Some of them may be closed off. So I'm pointing, so there is some evidence of that. There are actually Egyptian artifacts at the Vatican. They put them in the Vatican Museum. Lots of artifacts from ancient Egypt. A lot of artifacts from the Greeks. So we do actually know how the Parthenon was built. It was built in small little pieces with ropes holstered up to make the pillars, to make the Oh, yes, I did, Barbara. Oh, yes, I did. I did a live a few years ago on it. So in 1909, someone found a cave full of Buddhist and Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon in a cave. And it's rumored to be protected by the U.S. military. Believe it or not, Believe it or not. Believe it or not, it's... Yeah, and I don't think they weren't stupid. These ancient people weren't stupid. They had advanced ways of doing everything. I think they were masters at everything from math, science, and construction techniques. Maybe they just got lazy back in the later years, and they started building mud brick pyramids. All right, not with the stone. So when I'm hearing, I heard another story on a documentary. Oh yeah, me too, Barbara. I think we should do a live one day. I'm looking for a guest that will not sit there and kiss my ass. Yeah, the Grand Canyon, Gloria. In the Grand Canyon, they found, this was 1909. It made the newspapers, and then it was led by the Smithsonian allegedly, and now the Smithsonian denies any involvement. Yeah, so the narrative that they're pushing, Egyptologists, is they stayed in Egypt. They didn't have a navy. They didn't travel around the world, which is pretty much turning out to be hogwash. Now, let me point this out. Some Mayan and Aztec glyphs were found in Egyptian structures. A few hieroglyphs from Egypt ended up in a temple. The temples of Central and South America. So how would they know that if they weren't in communication or anything? So there's the there's a link. I'll post it in the comments. There's so there are two spirit traveler groups, books, and she's going to be making Sonia Grace will be doing a third on lost civilizations in our solar system. That should be very, very interesting. Oh, okay, Barbara. That's a good theory. All right. That's a good theory. But your theory on Planet X has a problem. All right. If the planet was the size of Neptune or something, wouldn't there be some gravitational pull that they could find? There's probably more dwarf planets out there, so it could be. Now, what they're you might be inferring to is Nibiru. It's actually in another star system. The rumor from Zechariah Sitchin was they came here for gold to fix their atmosphere, and he tried to transcribe the Mesopotamian writings, and then he put theories on it. Yeah, some of this stuff is very, very interesting because Gloria. Let me put it this way: they're more worried about their reputations, Egyptologists and governments. They're just too worried about the narrative. Oh yeah, I heard that. That's the Mesopotamians said that. So according to some of these ancient writings, the Vedic readings or writings, whatever you want to call it, they mentioned that there was another planet in our solar system that exploded. That they call that Maldek, Phaeton. And NASA doesn't even believe it because the rubble in the telescope, the rubble in the not the telescope, the rubble in the asteroid belts wouldn't make much of a planet. But if a planet did explode, all right, hypothetically, wouldn't some of the material go into Jupiter, Saturn's atmosphere, Neptune's? Some of it goes into the sun. Now, I'm going to point out this, all right? I looked at the surface of new photos of Venus, and they have asteroids impacts about 180 miles long. But we can't tell how thick they were. They were huge, huge pieces. Now, another lady, I follow her channel on here. Her name is Debbie Solaris. She's an archaic record reader. She reads people's past lives, and she claims that when that planet exploded, it knocked all life on Venus through, I think, the moon of Venus out into another orbit. It was intergalactical catastrophe. Okay. We'll see who's right in the future, you know? So Planet X is not Meldeck or Phaeton. It was the planet that existed where the asteroid belt is now. But if you do a simulation on a planet exploding, you get debris past the sun. It could be what the Oort cloud is, or parts of the Kuiper belt. Some of the objects could have got stuck there. So Planet X is the hypothetical ninth planet. They demoted Pluto from ninth planet. Now they call everything beyond Pluto and Neptune dwarf planets. Now, what's really strange about our solar system is you have a real small planet named Mercury. Then you have two planets around the same size, Venus and Earth. And then you have Mars, which is smaller in nature, but it just doesn't make sense. You see other solar systems, and they're double starred, triple starred. Everything seems to be in order. But what science can't predict, in my opinion, is they can't exactly see these planets. I think the most that they got, I have a picture somewhere in my files, where they found a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri or Alpha Centauri, and they have a shadow of it. So they can only estimate the size. Okay, thank you, Barbara. Trans-Neptunian. They had different names for it. So many different names for things. It's crazy. Yeah, they would deny finding them because it would throw away Egyptologists' life work, going through the tombs and trying to figure things out. They treat the ancient Egyptian people, all right, practically as idiots. They want to portray a society that had just chisels, bow and arrows. They walked by foot, no real boats. But the Nile was actually a transportation system. They went across the Mediterranean. They probably went all around the world. And there's a site, Gloria, in Australia. Let me find it on the map here real quick. Let's see here. I know exactly where it is. I just got it's in New South Wales. What is it? Croton Stones or I probably am mispronouncing it, but there's a group of rocks outside Sydney. All right, and they have hieroglyphs on it, crude made hieroglyphs. Now, if this was a later work of art, this was a later work. Wouldn't hieroglyphics just be random signs, random characters? But if you actually read those stones, it actually tells a story. But they said they were shipwrecked on the side of Australia, the east coast of Australia. Gosford stones, Gosford, Gosford, and there's stones in the forest, and they have hieroglyphics on them. And they said they were shipwrecked. They had to bury some of the crew, and it actually says something that not just if you just knew a few hieroglyphics and people were doing graffiti, it just wouldn't make grammatical sense. You know? Yeah, it's very interesting. Oh, I don't trust NASA either, Barbara. I'm sure they have pictures and from the Hubble telescope and the James Webb telescope. I'm sure they have pictures of flying craft, and they just don't want to cause a panic. You know, and I read another book. All right, let me just put this in the chat. I got it bookmarked. All right, let's see here. So the book is From Venus I Came. All right, has some claims. They claim that the planets in our solar system beyond Jupiter, our readings in the 70s and 80s were off. Some of them were covered up. So this is I put this in the I put this in the category in between nonfiction and fiction, because when they mention Jupiter or Neptune, it could mean the area around it, a moon or something that once harbored life. So this is the book. This is the other book I'm reading, From Venus I Came. And it's a very interesting read. I'm not sure if I believe everything I read in it. Some of the claims seem to be out there, even more outlandish than some people may read Sonia Grace's work. But some of the things that Sonia Grace says in her book is actually supported by science. All right? And she knew about things that weren't actually released, because there was a tour guide in the Yucatan, and she asked a question, are we allowed to go in here? And she says, how do you know about that? How do you know about that? We don't advertise that. The tunnels underneath Chichen Itza, and it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's religion too. You know, it's that they discount these oral traditions, or writings from India, writings from Egypt. It is, if it doesn't make sense, it's probably a myth. And as I said, there's always truth to myth. Sometimes it was oral tradition that changed over time, and then it was written down. So you're bound to get mistranslations. You're bound to get anything. And these people just say, okay, because they believed in many gods, doesn't mean they didn't exist. I don't believe they were immortal. Yes, I have, but I haven't got too much into it, Barbara. I haven't gotten too much into it. I saw some of those beautiful temples, Barbara. Some of those beautiful buildings that you couldn't create using chisels. They think they think the human race is stupid. They can't explain how they were built. They don't know why they were built. There's no writing inside these temples. Nothing. They just exist. And some people in the paranormal community are trying to investigate oh, okay. I think I'm gonna look into some of the things in India, because Indian culture is actually pretty fascinating. It's just I have this fascination with other places besides India, and then there's a sunken pyramid underneath the shores of Japan that's sunk. It's underwater, and they don't know if it's a pyramid or what it is. It's very, very So we got a few people in the paranormal community that are writing books or making videos on here. And I don't believe everything I hear. I don't believe it. I don't believe everything I read. I don't believe everything I hear. Because some of these people on YouTube, oh, really? That's interesting, And then there's the Isis Stones. And Sylvia Brown actually commented on those. She claims that they're what do you call them? Hard drives for information. We just don't have the technology to tap into them. One looks like a rock or planet with different continents on them. It's not Earth. They're not doing artwork. And Sylvia Brown actually claims that her guide, her main spirit guide, was Inna, or I think she called her Francine. And she said that she is aware of the crystal skulls. Yeah. The crystal skulls she was aware of when she lived in the 1500s. And they were made by melting crystal into a mold. Now, could the Egyptians have done the same thing with some of their statues? Melted stone. Now there was one thing that we know from the Roman days. They made concrete that lasted. There were some structures that are over 2,000 years old and still kicking a punch. So one theory I had how they built some of these structures is they mixed limestone with a binder. They ground it up, and then that's how they took it to the site, made the bricks on site. They made them like mud bricks, but different formula. And to move these stones, they use sound. Now we see in some of these places plug stones that are so heavy. How do they move them? How do they move these plug stones? Maybe sound or electromagnetic energy, or they had one stone that pulled due to a magnetic pull. But those other ones, the other stones that would explain that theory pretty good, they're missing. Some of these places around the world, they have these plug stones, and they don't know where to how to get. They don't even know some of them how to move them. They're so heavy, so they're finding these little stones and there's so many things that they can't explain. Some of the structures in South America, they're earthquake resistant, which is so they could build something that's earthquake resistant back in the day. Something is missing. Maybe the Vatican, right? Maybe the Vatican actually suppressed some of the history. Because after the Great Flood, civilizations were destroyed. It probably, with the knowledge they had back then, they would have survived. They would have got their lives back together in maybe 10 years, 5 years after cleaning up. But then you had disaster after disaster with comets and asteroids. They had to go underground. And then they lost their technology, and then they downgraded. And then they downgraded some more. Maybe because some of these methods Oh yeah, Barbara. Peru, one place. I think Colombia has some, Brazil. They're all over the place. Yeah, I think so too, because you can't push bluestone from 50 miles and drag it across the ground. It doesn't make sense. Why would they spend 40 years on a building project? 40 years. Wouldn't that be too long to build something? They had some kind of advanced method. I'm not saying they had power tools, but they had a way to do it. That's a good question, Barbara. I think they're natural structures, actually, but maybe, just maybe, they hollowed them out. You know, there's water underneath, just like Giza. Sometimes you could take something and you take something like a rock and hollow it out. They probably had acid or something to burn these stones. Who knows? But some of these statues they find, they don't look like they were nicked by a tool. I do actually believe the crystal skulls theory that they had this method of melting down rock and crystal and everything else, putting them in a stone mold, and then mass producing stuff. Because, and then there was a witness to building the pyramids. It may look like stones are moving by themselves. Another theory is they could have had magnets on top and then they moved them that way. They used sound. They had some advanced way of doing things, you know? So we have no answers. So I'm reading some of these books to get a better perspective. Get a better perspective on how they did this stuff. Because it's just the way they're explaining it, it's impossible. I think because crystal can be used, in my opinion, they use it in electronics these days, Barbara. I think crystal is another way to store information. You know, I think some of our laptops and phones have crystal in it. They have gold, conductors of electrical current. And so I'm looking forward to her new book that's coming out maybe a year or so. She's still in the process of writing it. So she's going to go through the solar system. She's going to travel back in time and see what comes up. Yeah, they even had those, even on one documentary, Barbara, with the synthetic concrete in Alexandria's harbor. They found quickset at the bottom of the harbor. So all they did was you just poured in water and it sets by itself. Oh yeah, absolutely. They use it in our electronics today, like USB sticks and our hard drives. And I think just some of the people back when the flood happened, they wrote down some of the simple concepts, which were quite advanced for the time. And the story of Herodotus wasn't the first that went to Egypt. And this is the funny thing. There's a temple underneath the Nile River where Herodotus and I think Plato and I think another one, I think his name's Solon. I hope I'm not butchering the name. Now, he was met by the high priests, and they gave the history of Greece. The Greeks didn't have any written history. Not much of of history recorded from 1,500 years earlier. And they claim that, according to their records, Santorini erupted and caused a massive destruction. Yeah, absolutely, Barbara. And some of the things I think back in antiquity is the same as today. They classify certain materials so it isn't used for rebellion, or they use it for the safety of others. They don't want do you actually want a jihadist to have weapons of mass destruction? That would be dangerous, wouldn't it? That's why they keep secrets of the atomic bomb, nuclear weapons classified. Because if they get into the wrong hands, they're actually dangerous. Maybe it was the same thing back then. You know, some technologies were unreplicable after the flood. They had to use their brains to so we're gonna so anyone that in this book, in several of the books, they claim Atlantis wasn't just a continent, it was an empire. And according to Sonia Grace, all right, she writes about the Eye of the Sahara. And there was an Atlantean city that was built there and destroyed. And then there was stories, all right. There's something else in the paranormal community. All right. About Abraham. I read a book on there was a whole half a chapter on him. They claim that he wasn't from Earth. He was a prisoner. So what they did back at one point is they turned Earth into a penal colony. Sylvia Browne says it too. People used to drop off their unwanted merchandise. It's like emptying. It's like what Castro did. He opened up his prisons and sent them out. And then some types of people were restricted from getting information, and I don't think the Stone Ages is they were actually in the dark. And she claims on a podcast, Sonia Grace claims that human history goes back 250, 300,000 years. And all that is missing. All that history is missing. They have nothing. Yeah. Australia was a penal colony. The only difference is there was no physical prison. This Earth was the prison. They put them on some continents, and when they came here, they stripped the DNA. They manipulated the DNA. Our ancestors had 12 strands. Now we're down to 2. Okay, go ahead, Barbara. Go right ahead, Barbara. All right. It isn't just my paranormal community, all right? That's a good question. Some of the a lot of the people that came here that aren't from Earth, they came from that Meldeck place. They came from Orion. Yeah, I don't think it's actually a soul trap. It's just this planet is insane. All right, it's insane. You repeat the same old bullshit: Holocaust, genocide. It repeats itself. Probably maybe because of our DNA and we're not that as smart as we want to be. I'm not saying everyone on this planet's stupid, all right? But they sit there and they go into this woke frenzy, this woke, and it's probably just a scam to get votes. You know, oh, let's women, let women be victims. Let trans people be victims. Oh, gay people are now victims too. We want to be treated special. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Gloria. It does. It's according to Sylvia Brown. It's one of the most violent, disgusting places in the universe. It's one of the hardest planets to live on. And some planets they have their own issues. Yeah. All right. Let me go into reincarnation for a minute. Some people come from other planets. Some are native to Earth. I know exactly what the soul trap theory is, Barbara. But I think sometimes you gotta live so many lives on this damn planet because toughest school you'll ever go to. Yeah, I don't buy the trap theory too much. All right, I think it's maybe it's a trap. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that, Barbara. Yeah, this planet's density went from the 5D to the 3D almost overnight when the so-called Anunnaki came. So the story I'm getting is they the first time they manipulated DNA, it was an accident. The second time and third time it was on purpose. So it just made this planet stupid. Same stupid patterns over and over again. Some people are working through their Meldeck karma from destroying their own planet. A lot of people sat there and did nothing. I listened to another channel, and he claims that Meldeck, I believe this, it's all they're all for themselves. Everyone's in it for themselves, and it seems similar to Earth, but there was no way to pass that school. Yeah, the first time it was an accident. They didn't know what to do. They called for help, and they never had this problem before, so they had to sit there and research it for thousands of years. Because it never, I think it happened once or twice before, and they couldn't do anything about it. So it became a little research project for them. Yeah, they're afraid. I think they're afraid, perhaps, that we'd end up like the asteroid belt. I heard one thing that they put extra layers on the Earth so we don't develop as quickly because they're afraid we're our worst enemy. Look at this planet. We have all these criminals. We got these sex offenders running loose. We got these serial killers not kept in check for years until they get caught, and then it's execution time. I don't think that. And I'm gonna wait for judgment on this, but I did it on live a while ago. All right, I did a live stream where there's another book I read. I have it in my library, Pleiadian Perspectives. If you want to read that book, it's probably available online. And they claim that Mars had fighting going back and forth via the name God of War. Yeah, they only intervene. Our neighbors in space only intervene when we're a threat to others in the vicinity. Otherwise, they don't get involved. They don't interfere. It's like that prime. It's like that prime directive we see in Star Trek. It's yeah. Venus was fourth density. It was a higher vibration on Venus. As I said before, when the planet exploded in the asteroid belt, it flung things towards Venus, and science could actually back up this in a way. That explosion is just the evidence is in plain sight. Now we have Uranus that was knocked over. All right, I don't believe it's just gas, a gassy ball. There has to be some solid surface. In order for a planet to do that, flip on its side. Then you have Venus that moves the opposite way than the rest of the planets. It was probably struck from behind or something. And then the rotation on Venus is awfully slow. So something happened. Was it in recent memory or was it millions of years ago? There's no time on the other side in the spirit world. Probably because time is different on each and every planet and solar system. Time is different. And there's this, and NASA is showing us these illustrations of exoplanets, all right? That where a day lasts like a few days, few Earth days, goes real quick. I don't think, unless you see and observe a planet in a telescope, you can actually, it's just a computer model or whatever. Because 95% of the pictures you see are artist renditions made by the people in NASA. Made by NASA. Them little crooks. Yeah, time is an illusion. It's different on each and every planet, every solar system. Let me just say, Venus has, I think, 255 days. We have 365. Mars is twice as long. I think 1 year on Mars is 2 years here. And they say, here's the other thing before we go. They say, well, if you're too far away from the star, life has to appear like this, or I don't think there are many rules. Now, if you're too close to the sun or the star, it's going to be the planet's probably going to bake. But if you're in the Goldilocks zone, they probably have to expand it because it depends. Gas giants can create heat. A moon could be Earth-like. They think there cannot be life in Alpha Centauri because, their star will rip the magnetic field off, assuming it's just like ours. Who knows? They're looking through the telescope and they're finding these big, huge planets that have double, triple star systems. And we're one of the only few that has the one star right now. So if you look at the Göbekli Tepe, all right, and then you look at Mesopotamia, they had the same handbags in their art. Yeah, yeah, they're looking for on our standards. And look at what happened to Mars. All right, according to the one book I read, those a few groups of people on the planet. One was trying to take over. They successfully did it before, and there were I think part of the population was enslaved at the end, and they had some kind of power source on Mars, and a weapon went into the Mars's core, and it cooled down. Have you noticed how cold Mars is? It's geologically inactive. And Mars didn't go overnight. It probably took years and years once the magnetic field weakened to the point where there barely is one. So probably the furthest from the sun, this is just my theory, the hotter the planet has to be in the core. And the inner and outer cores are probably different in each planet. It's that case in the solar system. So if you do the Big Bang and the accretion theory side by side, no two planets are going to be exactly alike compositionally. Okay, okay, one planet may have more iron. Another planet may have less. There's a different pH levels of the soil. Yeah, they are looking for life under our standard, and I don't think maybe some planets that orbit red stars have a different frequency for their magnetic field. All right, each planet is different. Each planet is different. Each moon is different. If you have if a moon of Jupiter was orbiting and was tilted the right way, it'll probably be fit for life too. If the moon was hot enough inside, yeah, there might be less light coming, but so I was dared to do a interesting stream by you know who, and I think I did a way better job than he did. You see, some of us actually know how to create content. I give you something to listen to. You can argue with each other in the chat as long as you don't attack each other. Some people can't handle that, you know? So I'm going to hit the road. I want to thank Barbara for coming. I want to thank Gloria and then Jamie for showing up. Maybe this wasn't his topic, but yeah, thank you, Gloria and Barbara, for staying. I really appreciate it. And I'll see everyone maybe tomorrow. All right. I'm glad, Gloria. Bye.